Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to get some insight into learning support students. My guest today is Bari Frydman. She is an educator and a secondary of higher education. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah. So usually I start my guests where they went to college. So where'd you go to school?
So I went to good old Pitt, University of Pittsburgh, being a high school student in Pennsylvania. State schools were where I was headed, and I wanted the big rah-rah sports Division I. So ended up at Pitt. At the time, Penn State was harder to get into, so it was Temple and Pitt and some of the smaller schools for the just in case. And then I got accepted to Pitt. Far enough away from home, but still could get home when I needed to. So it was great, and was in Pittsburgh for my college career.
So let's go back a little bit in time in high school. When did you start thinking about going to college? Was it freshman year, senior year? Were mom and dad involved? Were they not involved? How did it all work for you?
Well, having a mother who was an educator, teacher, college wasn't, there was no question about college. I was going to college. It was just a matter of where. And truthfully, we didn't think about college until senior year. We knew that junior year we had to do well and get good grades, but we didn't apply to school. We didn't even think about colleges until senior year. And then we put out our applications. Everyone, the whole senior class, together, you know, everyone was doing it with their friends, filling out applications, and you sent them all in the mail, and you waited to see if you got an envelope or a big package. So if you knew you got a big package in the mail, you were looking at something good. If you just got an envelope, you were a little afraid to open it up.
And were you just focused on Pennsylvania because that's where you lived?
So for me personally, college was a matter of taking out loans, and so it was going to school where it would be inexpensive, or at least somewhat inexpensive, to be able to live, go to school, and not have ridiculous amount of loans.
So now you're at University of Pittsburgh. What's it like? What's the atmosphere? How did your 4 years go there?
So Pittsburgh is a college. It's a university within a city, but not in downtown. So this college, the university itself, is its own city. It doesn't partake in the what we would call, you know, center city of Philadelphia or the city of New York. All of the work and industry and corporate America of Pittsburgh is away from the university. So you just basically had this university amongst streets, not a lot of grass, but it was its own school. You didn't really interact ever with people outside of the university, other than maybe going up the street to Carnegie Mellon. But, you know, we had our own school that was just city-based. The buses could get you around. You could get a taxi. There was no such thing as Uber. So, you know, you could walk everywhere, but you didn't have outside influences other than your college.
And I guess the sports were good there.
Well, basketball has taken over now. Football was bigger when I was in school. They actually tore down the stadium where the football, Saturday afternoon congregations, of people all met. We now play in Heinz Field, so they built this beautiful basketball arena that's like NBA style, and there's restaurants in there, and I went back and I was like, wait a minute, where'd this all come from? I mean, it's completely changed. Even the housing, when we were there, like, they have so much more housing now than they ever did when I was at school there, and it's a gorgeous school. But you have to like city life because there's not much grass to sit on.
Yeah.
You definitely know that you're going to be on the buses to get to a grocery store or, walk, taxi, Uber somewhere because, it's definitely city. It's not
So,
the same.
so now you do your 4 years there. How does one go from that to becoming an educator of learning support students?
So I actually wasn't an educator at first when I left college. I wanted to be an occupational therapist. So I went to school taking all of the requisites that I needed to go and become an occupational therapist, I should say. And then what I realized is I wasn't sure where I wanted to go to school for occupational therapy. So what I did was I got a degree in psychology, a bachelor's of science in psychology, because all occupational therapists have a minor in psychology. So then I was able to go home and work and decide where I wanted to go to school. And I happened to get my first job in a school for students with disabilities and special needs, which led me down a completely new path. What I was doing was I was actually got hired to find jobs that students could do after high school who had learning support needs or physical support needs or some sort of support was needed in order for them to be successful on a job, which is where all my OT training had come in because I had done internships and things like that. So I loved it. I loved the idea that I didn't just have to be an occupational therapist in a school or just an occupational therapist in a hospital or geriatric center. My job allowed me to go to all these different places, all these new venues, and support students on their work in their workplace. I was not making very much money, so I remember actually I had an in-service of an individual agency that came in and told us about how they did the same thing that I was doing, but on a larger scale for people not just in school, but anyone who needed support on the job. So I got myself hired to go to work for them the Monday after school ended because they offered me more money. And within a couple months, I actually opened up my own business with a partner doing exactly that, finding employment for people who had needed support on the job. And because of my background working with the school, I knew that there were a lot of students who were going to be coming out of school needing the support but weren't ready. They hadn't learned enough of the life skills or job skills in school. So I opened up my own agency and ran that, and I actually worked with schools in the state of New Jersey from Essex County down to Camden County, preparing students for the world of life after high school. Then I realized that the schools were hiring me and that now more and more schools were following suit, and they were starting to develop their own programs because it was cheaper to be able to service a lot more kids within their district.
Sure.
So I had gone back to school and I got a master's in special education and got hired to develop a program for a high school in Mercer County and develop that program. I had been doing it anyway as a consultant, so really I just kind of took what I was doing and put it inside the building and began to work with the school and develop that program. From there, that's how I got into education. And the world of education has kind of bloomed into several things. One, now I'm in the classroom full-time in the public sector, but I'm also now working for a university in the tutoring, academic success of helping students on the college level who need and have learning support needs to be successful in college. But that's when I say learning support needs, it's not typically what you're thinking, because I'm a special education teacher, that all of my students that I see on the higher education level are special education students. They're not. They're just students that have needs to help make them more successful in college. You know, as society and the world changes, so does education. So what once could have been seen as someone who was limited as to where they could take their education, we're now at a whole different level where we know that students can be very successful academically, but their needs might be different. And they may not need support with their academic levels, but social, emotional levels, simple things as executive functioning skills, and as little as, you know, test anxiety. So the whole shift of education is learning as educators to teach our students grit and understanding how to feel success within themselves and get through and solve the problems that life challenges, you know, send us.
What classifies a student as a learning supported student?
So you have two different levels. When you're in the public education sector, you have students who have different needs, and those needs have to be met by the public education sector. It's as simple as executive functioning. It could be as intense as occupational and physical therapy needs, speech therapy needs, nursing needs to make them be able to attend schools. So there's all these different levels of support that get put into place. And as a special education teacher, I support those needs of students in the classroom. Right now, my job is to support students in the classroom with a general ed teacher, and we both together work to make our students, all students, successful without anyone understanding the differences in learning needs.
Gotcha.
So it could be as simple as a student needing the test read to them. It could be a student who needs to have their notes scribed to them. It could be something more significant that the student needs to have things modified in order to be successful in the class.
And what do they do at the college level to help these students?
So that's where life changes, because depending on their needs in high school, that does not necessarily reflect to what happens in college. Colleges today are being much more open-minded to the changing student and understanding that what typically was seen as supports years and years ago, like scribing or allowing students to, you know, have the lectures recorded for them, having a smaller test area for them to take a test, has now changed to allowing the student to take what their supports were in high school and seeing how the universities can help support them in a class. The difference, though, is once you get to the college level, there's HIPAA laws. So no one can speak on your behalf as they do in the public sector. So the only way you can get supports on the college level is if you go and actually speak to certain people at the college, and then you speak to your professor. You know, students are 18, they're technically adults. It's not the same, obviously, as when you're in high school.
So does every university, every college in the United States, do they have programs for these type of students?
Every college in the United States has to have some sort of needs that can try to help the student. It doesn't mean that the student's needs, all of the student's needs, can be met by every single university.
Okay.
So depending on what the student's needs are, depends on what the schools are willing to offer. For example, my own daughter, who is a senior, so I'm now in the process of college.
Finding a school.
We started looking very different than what I was used to, and I was looking at school. Well, I didn't look at schools. It was like, here's a list and go apply. And now we're looking at schools and visiting and determining how her needs as a student with learning support needs can be met on the college level. So you've got schools who offer specific special programs. You have schools that offer the ability to have what we call accommodations met. And then we have schools that may even have very special select programs that are even outside of what the university typically would offer. There are actually schools in the United States that offer this college experience, though the student doesn't walk away with a degree from the college. They walk away with a certificate of going through this program that will allow them to understand what living away from home is like, being a student on a college campus, taking classes that are at their academic level, but they wouldn't necessarily be awarded a actual degree.
Now, do some colleges, do they have a whole curriculum of 4 years of
Yes.
this? They do?
Yes, most colleges, because they have to meet some sort of needs of a student. So for instance, I'll give you the example of where I work. I work under the program of Academic Success Center. I'm considered their learning support specialist. My job is to help retain and make students successful on the college level. What do? Well, I may work with someone on organization, understanding time management. That's a big key to college is time management, because you're no longer following that school schedule where you start at a certain time, you end at a certain time, and now your sports are organized after school and your homework is organized after school and then your bedtime. So we find that a lot of students, especially freshmen, have a lot of time on their hands and don't necessarily use their time as wisely as they should. So I will work with students and actually develop an entire schedule for them for the week, even on the weekends, and understanding when they need to study, what classes are priority, what homework assignments need to be done. So even though I'm working on time management, I'm also working on organization and prioritizing what their schedule should look like day by day, week by week. Then I have students who are in master's programs who need help in study skills. Undergraduate seemed really easy, and it came, nice, neat, wrapped up in a box, and now they're into their master's program, and it's finally a little bit more difficult, and the anxiety of the difficult test-taking scenario or
So do
paper writing.
you see a lot of these kids that go on into the master's program, maybe even the doctorate program?
Oh, yes. It's, again, the program is designed to make the student successful. It's not designed, it can be designed to work with the student who has learning support needs and understanding what their learning support needs are and being vocal and advocating for themselves to their teachers and professors so that their needs are met. Some of them is as simple as literally just putting out a schedule and understanding how to develop the schedule for themselves. Gotcha. Then you have students who may have some more significant learning support needs in having to write a paper, understanding that, this math course that they're taking, they don't understand, they've tried the TA, well, there's additional math tutoring. These are the times, this is who you should be looking for, this is who you need to meet with. And understanding actually what's available to them to help make them
Now,
successful.
what happens to the students when after they graduate? Do they get just normal jobs and
Well,
they still
I mean,
need some kind of
so-
support as well?
So, no. I mean, anyone who's going on to college can academically meet the needs, or I should say expectations, of getting through college. So they're typical students who may learn differently, who may need a different path to be successful, but that doesn't change the fact that they can be typical adults in the community who are able to,
Start their own business or whatever they want to
I
do.
mean, all kinds of stuff.
Great.
It's about understanding, I think, where education has changed on the university levels and college levels is that their students look different now. And we're not just putting the square peg in the square hole. We're understanding that there's going to be a round peg and a triangle peg and a rectangle peg, and we can make everyone successful. It's just thinking differently on what their needs are.
Now, when do parents usually start to find out that their sons and daughters have a learning support of some
That's
sort?
already acknowledged, and the latest by high school, mostly, students.
So by
like-
middle school, they already know.
If not elementary school at times.
Really?
Yeah.
And what are some of the signs that say to the parents, oh, my student needs extra help of some sort?
Well, you're obviously your teacher's gonna let you know. In my case with my own daughter, I had a situation where, based on my background, my daughter did not like to read even as a baby, and she just couldn't sit still to get through a book. And I was like, okay, well, I know we've got, a little kid who's not sitting still at, 18 months old to read a book, and the pictures are right there and she could care less. And as she got older, and I noticed that she still wasn't liking to read and didn't read the way I felt that her peers were able to. So I said something to the school in first grade and said, this is my background. I'm just letting you know this is what I see. And by January of first grade, they're like, well, would you care if she used the reading, services through the reading specialist? I'm like, of course not,
So is it in every subject that the student gets the help in?
It's whatever subject they need help in. So some students may only need help in math. Some students may only need help with writing. Some students may need help, it's, again, the students get to the college and get accepted because they are academically capable of doing the work.
Right.
They just may need to take a different path to complete the work.
Right. So do they get it with everything, SATs, ACTs, they get that as well?
There are accommodations that can be met through ACTs and SATs, extra time, quiet testing center, one-on-one testing. And then there are colleges and universities who don't even need SAT or ACT scores to be accepted.
Right.
So again, that's where education and the connection of the changing world exists. There are some students who can't take a standardized test. They're never going to do well, and it's just not their forte, but at the same time can go to college and get straight A's because they're taking classes that they're academically capable of. I proctor ACTs and SATs, and you see, again, students come in who may have had services, when they were younger and no longer need services, and
No, fine.
they're taking the SATs and ACTs without any accommodations.
So we're coming to the end of our show, and usually I ask my guests, what advice do you want to give to the parents and the students that might have this type of learning support? What advice do you want to give to them?
I would just say be very open-minded because of the changing world and the change in education and having colleges and universities, definitely be more open-minded to the type of students that are on the road to success with degrees, that there is a school out there for everyone, and every student's needs can be met. Now, does that come at a cost? It could. It depends on the school itself and what they offer, and if this is extra or that's extra. But there really is school. There really truly is a school for everyone, and everyone can be successful in finding their niche to make themselves a productive, well-adjusted adult in society. So
Great.
I believe that, there's always a place for everyone in education.
Well, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So you've been watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.